is titled Value Stream Mapping. Our guest presenter is Margie Ochs, Director of Marketing and Business Development in the John D. Romi Center for Quality and Applied Statistics here at RIT. Margie is also a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt and holds a BA degree from Georgetown University and an MBA from the University of Rochester. She teaches Lean Six Sigma courses and assists students to apply and implement their studies through consultation, assessments, and workshops to deepen their knowledge and experience. She joined the center after teaching marketing and organizational leadership courses at both the Simon School of Management at the University of Rochester and the Saunders School of Business at RIT. Margie trained as a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt at Xerox, where she led over 60 projects in the areas of marketing, product development, strategic planning, customer service, and manufacturing, totaling over $350 million in revenue generation and cost savings. After completion of her in-program training, Margie carried her Lean Six Sigma experience into a variety of positions, including Worldwide Vice President, Office Products Launch, Consumables Marketing and Strategy, and Competitive Consumables Market Development. She served as a Lean Six Sigma loaned executive, consulting with over 80 Xerox customers on Lean Six Sigma implementation in their organizations, and led external projects to solve business problems in areas as diverse as supply chain optimization, medical lean process improvement, and product design and launch optimization. She also has extensive experience mentoring other executives who were first-time project sponsors and working with cross-functional teams dealing with formation and strategic integration of Lean Six Sigma into business and organizational planning. Margie has spoken at a number of conferences and events on the incorporation of Lean Six Sigma into strategic planning. Margie, we're happy to have you here with us today, and our audience is all yours.
Thank you so much, Lydia. And I always feel when I start these sessions like I should apologize because I'm not an RIT alum, but I have so many family members, and I got here as fast as I could. So with that as an introduction, we're going to talk today about saving time, money, and resources using a tool that's very, very popular in the business world today, and it's called value stream mapping. Value stream mapping has really been championed by companies such as Toyota, Boeing, and companies and organizations of every size around the world. So it is a tool that is very, very widely used, and I hope that today you will find some value in what we're talking about, even though it's just a general introduction, and from there we can go forward and talk about any specific needs that you have. I'm just going to try to change the slide. There. Is it not going with me? Let's see what it's doing. Must have hit the wrong button. Just a second. Over there. Right here? Perfect. Oops. No. Okay.
Hold on 1 second.
Bear with us. And up there I am. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. All right. So we are going to cover the whole topic of value stream mapping. It'll be a little bit of an introduction, and I'm sure that there'll be more questions that you'll have. So please feel free to ask any questions. I am doing something terribly wrong here. Please feel free to ask any questions that you have, and I will try to answer them during the time that we're together today. And as always, if you have any other questions, I always love to talk to our alumni and see how we might help you with your business needs. So today, we'll be talking about what the heck is really value stream mapping, and why do you use this Lean Six Sigma tool? When do you need it? And quite frankly, when do you not need it? And then we'll talk a little bit about waste. I've talked about that before. And we'll delve into how you start doing a value stream map. And we're going to end today with a little bit of an invitation for our alumni so that you can participate in actual value stream mapping, and we'll come back to our larger alumni group and talk about your actual results. But more about that in just a moment. So let's move on and let's talk about what is the idea of value stream mapping. Now, value stream mapping is a little bit different from the classic flowcharts that you probably learned here and back in high school, because value stream mapping is what's called a lean technique. We're leaning our organizations to take waste out of them. So we're looking at the flow of materials and information that's required to bring a product or service to a consumer. If you talk to the people at Toyota, they started out calling this a material and information flow map, so a MIFA. And so sometimes people refer to value stream maps as MIFAs when you're talking to a real dyed-in-the-wool lean expert. Now, the interesting thing about value stream maps is that we can do them for the current state of our process. We can also do them for the desired state. So they're very flexible, and they really help a business or organization to understand what it is that is costing money, time, and resources, and where those things can be saved to improve profitability and to improve as well your customer satisfaction. So let's move ahead and let's talk about a little bit more on the idea of waste and what waste really is. So I've talked to you a little bit before about this for those of you who've been on the prior webinars, and we talked about 9 forms of waste. We use an acronym called Tim Wood VP, and there you see Tim, and he's a little bit old because look at that antenna that's on his phone, but believe me, these wastes are very, very current in our organizations today. So we can have the waste of transportation. Perhaps in your business, if you're a manufacturing organization, you might find that your people have to get up and walk off of a line to get to a bin to get to needed parts that they require. If you're a health organization, you might find that your practitioners need to get up and go to a different closet or storage area to get needed test tubes or tools or devices that they need. And don't forget, even if you're in an office organization, you may find that the people that are working in your offices are finding all kinds of transportation waste as they have to get up to get printouts, get a form, get office supplies, get other forms of information. So transportation is a very, very big waste we find in every organization. Of course, there's the time-honored waste of inventory where we produce some output of some kind, a product, a brochure, something that we have in inventory that's aging, and many times as we walk through a given storage area or a warehouse, we look at inventory that's trapped, that we can't really do anything with, and yet it's sitting there taking up space. We just worked with an organization last month who told us they had absolutely no trapped inventory whatsoever. They were very current, and when we went out with them and took a look at their warehouse and where they were storing things, they found just from a 1-hour walk that they had over $300,000 worth of inventory of parts, of products, and of documents that they could no longer use. So we've all got those dirty closets at work and at home. Now there's also the waste of motion, where we're taking extra steps, extra movement, where we have to move in order to get something done rather than everything being right near us. We're all very familiar with the waste of waiting. How many times, not to offend our medical community, but have you waited in a doctor's office or waited for a waiter or a waitress to bring food or waited for something to be available so you could take the next step with it at your office or place of work? So we all know what waiting's about. Now, overprocessing and overproduction, as we've talked about before, are somewhat similar, but overprocessing means, are we taking too many precautions, perhaps too many steps in order to get through a process? So how many signatures is really required in order to get a purchase order approved or in order to get a trip approved? Is there a little bit too much overprocessing in the system that we're using, and that's causing waste? Overprocessing Over-production could mean everything from over-engineering, over-designing, to actually overproducing the products that or services that our business is offering to the marketplace. So even though we only need 500 of something, are we producing 600 because what the hey, we're already geared up, we've got the production ready, so let the line run. Now, we all know about defects and variation because that's the Six Sigma side of Lean Six Sigma. So we've been talking about lean waste. Then we've got those defects and variation when a product that's produced isn't in spec. When we go to perhaps pick up a prescription and, God forbid, the pharmacist gets out the wrong bottle and has to catch him or herself before they give us the wrong medication. So we're all familiar with defects and variation in processes that we live with every day. And then we also talk about the waste of people's talent, and that is the waste of underutilizing people or not enabling people to use all of the talent that they bring to our organization. Finally, it could relate to empowerment. We were working with an organization in the last month where the organization, the leadership, had some specific ideas of where waste was being created. And then we did what we called the walk in the gemba. We actually went down to the site where the work was being conducted, and people had all kinds of ideas on how to streamline the process and actually eliminate waste. But because we hadn't gone to see them, we weren't able to harvest the talent that they had, the experience that they had. So these are the wastes that we often talk about in the process of looking at value stream mapping and trying to identify all 9 forms of these wastes that we want to eliminate. So I want to be very candid about when you should consider doing value stream mapping and when you shouldn't. Because many of our clients will come to us and say, well, I just talked to a consultant. I think we need a little bit of training. If we could pay someone to do some value stream maps for us and to do some flow charting and some standard work, we'd be all set. And the first thing we do, because we like at RIT to teach people how to fish rather than to fish for them, is we talk to them about whether they need to do a value stream map or not. And in the lower right hand of the slide, you see a value stream map. It's actually a value stream map that we redacted a little bit, but it is for one of our clients who produces, just shall we say, liquid beverages that you might be consuming. And we were able to get their entire process onto one value stream map. So when should you consider doing a value stream map? Well, certainly you want to do one if you seem to be out of capacity. Before you decide to get more space or more room, let's do a value stream map and see if we can identify any waste of space or transportation that might be affecting your organization. Oftentimes you'll start to hear chatter from other associates and employees talking about efficiency. We could do this better if. It wouldn't be as hard to do if. We could be better at this if. And that's a time when maybe it's good to sit down and do some value stream mapping and gather up those ideas. Similarly, people will talk about process waste and having better options. And we listen to those and we say, well, it would be better if we did this, but it's going to be hard to get that done. Or, well, we're doing okay doing what we're doing. But when we aren't valuing those better options and really analyzing them, those can add up over time to cause significant amounts of waste. Sometimes you may be concerned about a given process and how much it's costing. And we've had very great success with organizations doing some value stream mapping to take true bottom line costs out of their business, sometimes in the neighborhood of 6 digits. Are you missing any delivery time? Are you not able to keep up with demand? If you're in a custom organization where you're producing custom output, are you quoting delivery times and then not able to make them? If you're not in a custom business, your product is relatively common across the value chain, but you're still missing delivery times. What's getting in the way between your customer, or your order-taking organization, I should say, your order-taking organization, your customer delivery organization, and the organization, the part of the organization that's actually doing the production of the product? And lastly, we would suggest doing a value stream map when the work that you're doing doesn't seem to flow evenly. And we're not just talking about manufacturing organizations. We could be talking about marketing organizations, banking and financial organizations, healthcare organizations, where work just doesn't seem to flow evenly. There's a lot of starts and stops. People are complaining about wait time, maybe even the customers or clients, and that might be a great opportunity to do a value stream map. So, when would you not want to do a value stream map? Believe it or not, sometimes we have clients that come to RIT and they say, well, we've talked to some consultants and we just need to do a value stream map. And we say, all right, what is the problem that you're seeing? What are you experiencing and what are you trying to fix? So if the organization is having a problem with product quality or service quality, the customers are reporting through maybe customer satisfaction surveys or calls back to your organization, conversations with your sales organization, quality problems are an indication that you may want to look at the Six Sigma side, the variation and the quality side of the toolkit that we can provide for you. Sometimes you'll find there are excessive downtimes or breakdowns of equipment. And again, we have some other tools that we might suggest that you use first before you turn to value stream mapping. Now, one of the more common reasons we have, and maybe like me, you've uttered these same words before to your people, hey, why don't we just do a value stream map? Just because a higher up wants a value stream map doesn't necessarily mean that you need one. So go out, walk the Gemba, walk through the Telebusiness Center, walk through the manufacturing floor, walk around on the floor that's doing patient care. Talk to your people that are at the front line with the customer. Go to that Gemba and see if a value stream map is needed just because an executive might have said, oh, I heard about this, let's do a value stream map. Believe me, we have talked many executives down from doing a value stream map when they were trying to solve other problems that we didn't think were related to waste. And one other situation that we see is that there could be employee morale issues that the organization is facing. And I'll admit to you that we have to walk through those carefully. But oftentimes when there are employee morale organizations, and to be blunt with you, coming from an organization like Xerox, where I worked before this, where we were constantly in cost-cutting mode, when we would ask our employees to help us with value stream mapping, they often saw it as strictly a cost-cutting measure and just a way to get rid of more people, when oftentimes doing a value stream mapping is the furthest thing that you want to do. You want to free up people to use their empowerment, to use what they know as best practices, as suggestions, to help cut costs in other areas, to cut time, and to cut the complexity of a business. So if you're facing employee morale issues, you have to be careful about introducing value stream mapping. I'm sure everyone knows that. But when we walk into that situation with a client, that's one of the first things we ask, because if we're going to do value stream mapping, we need to get everybody involved, engaged, and very positive about this effort. So I'm not yet seeing any questions, so let's move on from when not to do a value stream map. Bear with me as I just scroll down here. I'm going to get better at this. Okay, so we've talked about when not to do a value stream map, and then next, we want to talk about a value stream map that you're probably very, very used to, you see that dark blue background. That's meant to represent the speed. And you can tell that I didn't go to RIT because my graphics are not necessarily as good as they should be. So let's talk about a restaurant. We've all been to restaurants recently, and oftentimes restaurants can be short bursts of energy in a sea of waiting. Remember that flow I talked about? Well, it's not always even. First, we talk to the host or hostess, and we wait while they go find us a table. Now, it might take a few minutes if there are other clients ahead of us. We might have to give our name, and we're constantly having to go back and check or monitor our phone or that pager device they give us in order to get a seat. So we have to wait because there are other clients in the restaurant, other diners, that are at all the tables. What gets particularly irritating is if we're waiting and we see a whole number of dirty tables and no one's getting up there to clean those tables. The restaurant's creating dissatisfied customers. We are the dissatisfied customers who are very disgruntled, and it shows that the staff is probably overworked and being underutilized in some way, shape, or form. So I don't know if I should be using this example at lunchtime, but hopefully you are all snacking on something and thinking of your favorite restaurant and when you had to wait that time. Finally, you get seated at the table. Hopefully you get menus. You order food, and then that food is prepared, so you have to wait for it. But we say that that is not non-value add. That's a value add because we would want to pay for the preparation of the food by a certified chef who is absolutely practicing good process and good technique. Then finally, the moment we've been waiting for, the food is served and consumed. So we're eating, we're talking, we're enjoying ourselves, and then comes that time when maybe we have to wait for the bill to be provided. The bill comes, we pay the bill, and maybe we have to wait for the change to come back or our credit card or Venmo to be run. And so there is a little bit of time in there that we wouldn't say is worth our paying for it. There are things we would pay for. We pay for getting menus. We pay for ordering the food and getting it prepared so that we can consume it. But we don't want to pay for just sitting around waiting for a waiter or waitress or a hostess to come by and fill our water glasses. So not all waiting time is waste, but indeed in every process there might be waste. And I can tell you that we have gone to several restaurants in Rochester doing value stream mapping because they want to find how to make their wait staff more efficient, more effective, give them more time to focus on customers. If we can do that in a restaurant, then we can certainly do it in your business or your organization.
Margie, we do have a question coming in. Do you have some tips on how to keep customers at the center of value stream mapping so that it doesn't become all about cost cutting?
I definitely do. In fact, we have a whole, I won't say it's a class, we have a whole module on this, on how to keep the customer at the center. The very reason that you do value stream mapping is because you want the customer to be at the center, because if the customer is happy and they are purchasing your services or products, you are gaining more revenue. If you have waste in the process, it is as though, I like to use the analogy in class, you're just throwing $20 bills at the shredder constantly and losing money. So how do you keep the customer at the center? That's the very essence of value stream mapping. So you are constantly looking at what is active time that the process is working, that a customer would say if I had to explain it to them, yep, I'd pay for that. But when you come to a point in the process where there's waiting or there's inefficiency, ask yourself, how would you explain this to the customer? And would the customer say, sure, I would pay for that? I will use an example. I don't know why I'm using food today, but I go back to an experience we had when I was at Xerox. We were working on a project for McDonald's, and as you know, they're located just outside of Chicago. And one of the value stream maps we were working on was the actual preparation of a hamburger, cheeseburger, a sandwich. And as we talked to the people that they had brought in who were preparing the food, they talked about, is it value add if you have to wrap the sandwich? And we said, well, that's a good question. If you asked your customers, do you want your sandwich wrapped, they would probably say, of course I would, if the cost is reasonable, because I don't want you to just drop that hamburger in my bag getting all greasy. So to keep the customer first, the thing we stress is ask at every stage in the value stream map, is this something the customer would be willing to pay for? And in just a few minutes, we're going to be talking about how to circle those areas which require more attention, because a customer, if they knew about this, wouldn't be willing to pay for that value or that lack of value that's occurring. So that's an excellent question. Okay, so I just want to clear up a little bit of an ambiguity, a flow chart versus a value stream map. We often talk to clients and they will say, oh, don't worry, we've already done value stream mapping. And they get us out these wonderful flow charts and we say, okay, we don't have value stream maps. We have flow charts. They're showing the flow of a process. They're showing the boundaries, the starting and ending of a process. They may have a number of levels of detail. We can go from the process and explode out all the boxes. Sometimes they're vertically oriented on the page or they're horizontal. And the flow chart assumes that you're getting 100% of the output. What goes in comes out as a product or service that you can sell. Then we go to the right-hand side of the page and we look at the actual value stream map. The value stream map is looked at as one completely horizontal document that captures not just the steps in the process, but captures the processing steps when information or when material might be transformed. So it's showing both material and information, where the flow chart really doesn't do that. The big thing about a value stream map is that it shows time frames, both for action and for waiting, and it puts the process on a large page so you can see the process through a value stream lens on one continuing page. And then we actually calculate the yield of the process. Because if we have products or services that we can't use at the end of the process, then we have waste, and we want to eliminate waste in that process, and that's one of the things that we would circle and agree to go after. So a flow chart doesn't show waste. It doesn't show how long they're starting and stopping. It doesn't show action and waiting. And it really doesn't always focus on the flow of material and information. That's somewhat assumed in a value stream map. So how do you get started doing a value stream map? If you and I were walking out to do a value stream map right now, I would suggest that the first place we start is going to where the process is being done that we want to value stream map. So it might be our customer care process. It might be our telebusiness process, from the time the customer calls to the time that we hang up with the customer if we're doing this telephonically. It might be from the time that we start making a product to the time that we stop and that product is ready to go into finished goods. It even might be what happens to a patient when they come into our facility to have a medical procedure done to the time that they actually leave that facility, hopefully having received the procedure and in better health. So the first thing we do is we walk the gemba. We go to where the process is being conducted. And we just do that to get a general sense of what is going on and what types of things could be flags for waste within the organization. Then we assemble a team. We want to talk to the front line, the people who are really doing the work, because they have the PhDs in the process. They know where waste is occurring. They know where there are frustrations and where things could be done better. And so then we introduce the reason for the value stream mapping. We educate them a little bit as to what we're doing, because we want empowered, connected, motivated people working with us on the value stream map. We lay out large flip charts of paper on a horizontal basis, and we give people markers, and we say, all right, let's start describing the steps, the time, and the throughput in the value stream. We might combine certain steps, and we put them into one box, but we're trying to map out the whole value stream, where we're active, where we're not active, or where we're passive and waiting, and then we're mapping out this value stream. Oftentimes, depending on the complexity of the value stream we're looking at, it might take a day or a day and a half or more to do the entire value stream. Because as we're mapping it out, we also are looking at what data we need to gather. Now, I see that we have a question about how we can get people on board so that they see that we're trying to uncover the money, the time, the effort, the resources from the value stream map. So that's a great question. It's very true that we don't necessarily know how much savings we'll get by doing the value stream map, but when we walk into organizations where there may be a little bit of frustration, there may be suggestions, as I talked about earlier, there may be the sense that we can do value stream mapping and collect those suggestions and do things differently. That gets people on board with the project. Literally, I will say to organizations that I do, if somebody doesn't want to be on board with this, don't invite them. We'll catch them up later. And I can tell you that in a huge majority of the cases, as we start doing the value stream mapping, as we lay out the process, they wander into the room to see what's happening, and they become a part of the effort. We don't introduce this as this is just simply a cost-saving effort to make people afraid for their jobs. That could be an output, but more than that, we're talking about empowering people, freeing up the knowledge that they already have, the experience with the process, and getting rid of the frustrations that they might be feeling if they think that the process could be done more effectively. So we try to bring people in by not pushing them, but by pulling them with the reasons for the value stream mapping and the idea that coming out of the value stream mapping, everyone's job should be enriched, there should be more empowerment, and the waste and frustration in the system should be, if not completely eliminated, it should be significantly reduced. So thank you for that. That's a very good question. We do need to involve people because we need to get data. How much time does it take for this step to occur? How much time is spent waiting? So we're looking at when we're actually doing things and when we're just waiting. And we're going to see this on a value stream map. It'll be a little bit clearer in just a page. But then the next step is to really start to attack the sources of waste. And this is where we can go from the current state to a future state where we map out how the process could work if we were able to eliminate the frustrations, the waste, the time stealers, and do this process more effectively. So it's at this point that we then get to a value stream map, and this is a very, very simple one, but I took this from an organization that we've been working with. They produce a metal tool. It is actually one of your alumni. They produce a metal tool that goes into I won't name the company, but let's just say this metal tool is very important for a given furniture provider that just might come from Scandinavia. So if you've ever been in their stores before and you've bought a nightstand or a desk, their metal tool that had to be milled, stamped, and packaged goes into every box that this company makes. So it's a lucrative contract. It's something that the company is very proud of. And so I redacted and simplified this because we only have a few minutes to talk about this. But basically, what happens is that to produce this metal tool, it needs to be milled, stamped, and packaged. And we could do a flow chart on each one of those steps. But the supplier brings a certain type of stamped metal, and there's some information on how much product, the raw material, I should say, the supplier has brought in that needs to be milled. There's information on the actual physical makeup of the product, the size, the actual material that it's made out of. All of this information also accompanies the actual material that needs to be stamped as part of the process. And so when we first went to work for the company, they said, let's start with something that we make repetitively. It's not a specialized product. We make thousands of these every week. And our supplier pulls up a truck, and the product, the raw material, is never here more than probably an hour before we're already starting to mill it, stamp it, and package it. I said, okay. What is your level of good product at the end of the run? Oh, we get 100%. If we don't get 100, we get 99.9%. We know how to do this. So the supplier pulls up, they give us the product. We're very lean. We do just in time. And then how long does it take to mill the product, to prepare the product to be stamped? Well, each one going through probably takes about 15 seconds. When we went back and we asked the people on the line how long it takes to do this, we timed them, and they timed themselves, and they said, it's taking 33 seconds. Then that milled output sits around for about an hour before somebody comes from another side of the plant and takes it back over to be stamped. So in that hour, there's transportation waste. There are all kinds of waste related to the other aspects of waiting. The output needs to be reviewed by quality control to make sure that we don't have any errors. We said, oh, we thought that 99.9% of the product was going through. Not quite that high, probably about 96, 97%. So we actually went back and did the math, and we found that about 98% was getting through and could be then taken stamping. The stamping actually took about 25 seconds as you put each part through. And then the product waited for about 2.5 hours where it was packaged, and then it was taken out and given to the customer, where it was sent to this very large furniture producer. So all in all, when we did this, we found that there were about 63,000 seconds of waiting time where nothing was happening to the product, and there was about 1.5 minutes or 93 seconds where something was actually happening to the product. So I won't go into all of the details of this, but for reasons that involve transportation, movement, those types of waste, there were some significant waiting times such that those little wrenches spent 99.85% of their time waiting and only about 0.15% of their time being actually produced. Now, it blew the owner of this factory away because he had no idea that the time spent moving from one building to another, the inspection process, some of the accuracy problems in the production were actually causing this waste. But that gave us areas that we could look at and say, how can we simplify, streamline, improve the flow? So we could take some tools out of our tool belt and we could actually significantly improve the production time versus the waiting time, so we could bring down costs and give this manufacturing operation back some time when, no, they didn't need to lay employees off. They actually could have their employees working on more product production because of the time that we found them. So this is a simple and a somewhat, if you will, redacted version of the process to show how the process can actually be put into a value stream map. So what do we find from value stream mapping? Well, we can find lack of flow, just like we showed before, where there starts and stops. We can find the impact of doing individual processing versus batching. We can show bottlenecks that hold up flow. We can show where there's multiple handoffs. We can show where there's waste due to layout, where there's motion and transportation waste. We could go on and on and on. In fact, in 3 weeks, we're doing a whole lean value stream mapping effort with a group of admins located here in the Rochester, New York area who are coming to us from not-for-profit organizations, and we're going to talk to them about how the admin aides can improve their work efforts from all the organizations they come from just by talking about waste and value stream mapping. So this doesn't have to be a production example, although we use that in this presentation, but value stream mapping can help us anywhere from production to packing for a trip to admin tasks that we do. So again, we find many uses and many valuable results from doing value stream mapping. So let's talk about hints and tips as we come into the last few minutes of this. What we advise our clients to do is to involve the people who are actually performing the work. We've done value stream maps with heart surgeons. We've done value stream maps with people who are in the facilities management and the cleaning crews here at RIT. We've involved all kinds of people in value stream mapping. We want them to pay attention to material and information flows. That's what this is all about. We tell them to use a pencil to start with. Things change. So value stream maps won't be neat the first time through because we're constantly getting new information, more updates, more data, changing it until we come up with a very accurate value stream map. We have organizations who use sticky notes and flip charts so that they can move things around. But we always make sure that we go to the Gemba, the place where the work is being conducted. If there are any questions, we don't assume. We say that information flow should always end at a step that processes the information, because once the product or the service has been done, we find that there needs to be a step where we're updating a system, we're filling out some documentation. So if we don't stop at an information process, we're not sure that we have the complete process. And finally, remember that the value stream map doesn't relate to physical layout, but it shows the sequence of activities in the process. And it generally flows from right to left. So those are some hints and tips that can help you as you do your value stream mapping. What do people generally find? Well, even in the most effective, efficient organizations, like those organizations that I ran at Xerox, I say that tongue-in-cheek, we always found that there was more waste to eliminate. Why? Because over time, variation does creep in. We do things differently, and we want to make sure that we're all getting to the same place in the most efficient, effective way possible. So We find value stream maps where we can take out a few $1,000s worth of waste and help the organization. We've done value stream maps where we've taken out hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of waste. We look at the big picture. We have a session with the entire team where we look at the learnings and the findings. We're not aiming to lay blame. We're just looking at where are there sinkholes where we need to do things differently. And if we don't have agreement on what needs to be changed, we process that. And we have some techniques to do that we can make available to you. But we do have techniques to try and lead people through the change process. Then we want to leave the value stream map effort with a very, very committed work plan. What are the prioritized areas that need to be lean? And I stress prioritization. Are there some areas where we're just going to go back and change the way we do it? We call that a just do it. Are there some policies or some practices in the way? We used to have 3 levels of signature for people at Xerox to take a trip, whether they were going around the block or they were going around the world. Why did we need 3 levels of signature? Because at some point in time, there was a policy that became a practice and no one really looked at it. Do we have some naysayers that need to be persuaded? We've done value stream maps with open heart surgeons who said, it is my way or no way. This is the way we're going to do it. And when we're able to show them that people didn't need to spend as much time on heart bypass machines by doing things a little bit differently because we've used the experts that were in the surgical suite, we persuaded those naysayers to come around. So we've had broad variety in changing the minds of naysayers. It's not impossible. And then we want to make sure that we have a very prioritized list with the approach, the timing, and the accountability, the PATA approach to getting that list of things that need to be changed, who is in charge of the execution, who's accountable, what communication planning do we have to do, and how do we train people on the new ways to do things, including change management. So we need to make sure that we're helping people to feel very comfortable with the change, getting them to feel that the work that they're doing is very valuable and will result in savings to the organization. So from there, we move from the value stream mapping to summarizing and putting this together. Value stream mapping is about feeling before data. When you think things are taking too long or costing too much or just too complicated, when you know that if a customer were standing over your shoulder, you couldn't justify what was happening, when you hear your people talking about suggestions, but nothing seems to be changing, or my favorite, and I've been guilty of this, when you avoid going to the area where the work is being done because you don't want to hear the complaints, that's a sign that you might want to do value stream mapping. Now, we never reach perfection. Waste is a normal occurrence in our lives, and so we constantly have to work at reducing it. But if your team is finding waste in the value stream and you don't get rid of it, you've wasted people's time. So make a plan, execute it, and let's celebrate the savings, and it'll put your people in the mode that they're constantly looking for waste and they're constantly eliminating it. And in this relentless pursuit of waste, you're saving money, you're saving time, and you're getting a higher quality of whatever outputs are the result of your process. So that's putting it all together for you and summarizing. And now I'd like to open it up to any other questions that you might have before we put forth a little offer for you.
Thank you, Margie. We do have one person who is asking if you can share a little bit of the solution that you came up with in your case study.
Sure. In that particular case study, we were able to find that over time, if the organization was able to move the warehousing of the work in process so that it was stored in a location that was closer to the next steps in the process, they could save significant amounts of time. In this particular case study, they had the flexibility to move some things around their production center and their warehouse. It took a little bit of time, but it showed them that there was a value to taking those steps. They didn't have to make any capital improvements, and actually they were able to free up space that they could use for other purposes. So we were able to do some savings by virtually reorienting the production and the warehouse floor. In addition to that, we were able to generate some savings. I didn't go into these details, but the flow of information and the digital paperwork that followed this process, we were able to take steps out of that. And we were also able to save some steps from an accuracy standpoint on the quality control. So we tackled this because we thought it was going to be one of the easiest ones to do. And then we found out that there were indeed more savings that we haven't even looked at. You're going to get the PowerPoint here that we make available to you. And we don't necessarily have a perfect template for value stream mapping, but we can make available to you electronically some of the common symbols that are used. So if you want to tackle a value stream map, you can have the symbols that we use, although most of the time we draw them out on paper first before we commit them to PowerPoint or Visio.
So Margie, why don't you share with the audience what you're talking about in terms of your offer, and that may also answer some of their questions about templates and such.
Certainly, Lydia. So, as you're listening to me, and thank you so much for your patience and interest, you might have a process in your organization. It might be in your office, it might be on your production floor, it might be in some call center you have, it might be in some lab. It really doesn't matter, but you have a process, and that process you feel, as we talked this morning, might have some waste associated with it. So we want to make you an invitation and make this a little bit more interactive. If you have a process that you would like to work with us on, free of charge, we're only asking for your time, why don't you send us that process in a description? Here's my email, mmobbu@rit.edu, and we will work with your team, free of charge, to identify a solution. So it's a real live case study that we will present back to the alumni colleagues, you and I together, during a new webinar, let's say maybe about 8 weeks from now. So if you're local, we can get together at your site. If you're not local, that's not a problem. We've done remote value stream mapping, and we will be presenting some case studies, actual live case studies that the alumni at RIT have identified that you want to work. We'll be working with your actual real life data, but as you saw today, we're very comfortable redacting data if you feel that there's a privacy issue. But we thought it would be fun and it would be beneficial to your fellow alumni to show some real life processes and to work with you together on this. So if you just email me at that email address, I will contact you immediately and we'll get started working on a real life case study.
That's a pretty good offer. So thank you all for joining us today. That is all the time we have. If you have any additional questions, they can be emailed to ritalum@rit.edu or tweeted to @RIT_alumni with the hashtag #MeRITWebinars, and we will direct your questions to Margie. You can also use those contact points to respond to Margie's offer, and we will forward your requests on to her. Please note that all participants will receive an email from us within the next week with a link to today's webinar recording. And please join us for our next MeRIT webinar, which is next Wednesday, April 3rd, when the Reverend Dr. Monica Sanford, Assistant Director for Spirituality and Religious Life in RIT's Schmidt Interfaith Center, will present Self-Compassion at work, and at home. I think we can all use some of that. Many thanks to you, Margie. We thank you for taking your time out of your day to be with us and to share your information with our audience. And thanks to all of our listeners for joining us for today.